As the House Ag Committee gets ready to take up its version of the Farm Bill, the analysis on some of the proposals in the bill is underway. We'll talk about safety net proposals and other issues in the Farm Bill. And it is Wednesday. That means it's time for this week's Farmer Forum.
Live from the foothills of Hump Day via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with Paul Neiffer, the Farm CPA. Then it's our Farmer Forum with panelists Tim Recker and Gene Millard. Directly following the news, Margie Eckelkamp from The Scoop. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Now, here's the host of AgriTalk, Jeff Flory.
All right, Davis. Hey, thank you so much, and welcome to AgriTalk.
Ow!
I am Chip. That is Davis.
Yep.
Boy, the storms blew through yesterday, dude. I've got the broken off branches scattered all over the yards. Mm-hmm. I'll admit I made a dash for the basement at one point. Yes.
There is zero shame in that, dude. I mean, if you had gone down there and your house got razed to the ground, you would feel like a genius today.
That's right. You are exactly right. But I was doing the typical Iowa thing. I was grilling. Watching the storm come in.
Yeah, that's it. You get a tornado warning, and that means go out in the yard and look at the sky, right?
Yeah, so I was grilling and getting some delicious bone-in pork chops done.
Well, you got to keep your strength up.
Well, that's right. But when the trees started to crack in the ravine just south of the house, I thought, it's time to get in.
That's the line?
That's the line. Yeah.
Okay.
Busted the top out of some trees.
Did it?
And took a couple of trees down in my small pasture. Mm-hmm. And so I've got some cleanup work that needs to get done around here if you're looking for something to do.
Well, I got a limb kind of hanging down in my front yard. It's almost like
you're busy.
The branch was sawn off at one point, but then another limb grew out of it.
Yeah.
Well, where it was originally sawed off or whatever, it's rotten.
Yeah.
So this stick is just holding on by a little bit. It's about 9 feet up in the air. I can almost I just want to grab it so bad and just give it one good. That's all it needs. One good yank.
That's all it needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you.
That's right.
Yep. So some cleanup, but boy, the folks over in Greenfield, terrible outcome on that storm there.
Yeah.
There were some deaths, several injuries.
Yep.
I still have not seen all the official final numbers on exactly what the damage was in Greenfield. But boy, that tornado cut a path through that small town.
Yep.
There is no doubt about that. So, okay, man, let's get to the news. What do you got?
Sure thing. National Weather Service says severe storms with large hail, wind damage, and a few tornadoes will be likely today across the southern plains and Ark-La-Tex. I think that's Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas, where they all sort of come together.
Yeah.
Or is it Ark-Latex? It might be latex. Isolated severe storms possible across the mid-Mississippi Valley into the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. Hello, South Bend. A dangerous early-season heat wave will continue this week and expand from South Texas through portions of the central Gulf Coast by the weekend.
Yeah, there's some severe storms on the radar right now in eastern Oklahoma, northwest Arkansas, southern Missouri as well. So heads up.
Chip, Illinois is poised to reap record wheat yields, the Illinois Wheat Association said, following a one-day crop tour of the state, besting last year's all-time high.
Man.
The tour projected an average yield of 104 bushels per acre after scouting 59 fields, mostly in the state's southern third. Last year, the same tour projected an average yield of 97.1 bushels per acre. USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack lamented the time it is taking to complete the Farm Bill. Speaking to ag reporters this morning, the secretary had this to say.
The proposal being advanced by the House of Representatives, the Republican members of the Ag Committee, it really is designed not to create a route to passage, but I think it's designed, unfortunately, for a route to impasse, which will cause a further delay.
What do you make of that comment, Chip?
That is not the intention of the bill as it is presented. Now, are there some issues in the bill that Democrats are opposed to? Yes. But those are supposed to be negotiating points, not poison pills or lines in the sand.
Yep.
Therefore, negotiate. And I'm not I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't know why USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack is suddenly the Farm Bill spokesman for the Democrats in Congress.
That is interesting.
Where's David Scott? Where is Senate Chairwoman Stabenow? Where are they in this conversation? Listen, Vilsack knows this stuff inside and out.
Sure he does.
I mean, probably better than anybody. But that doesn't mean that he should be the Farm Bill spokesman for the Democrats in Congress. That's all I'm thinking.
From the no file, the Biden administration plans to release 1 million barrels. That's about 42 million gallons of gasoline from the Northeast Gasoline Supply Reserve to lower retail prices before the July 4 holiday. Target missed Wall Street's first quarter earning estimates. While its revenue was roughly in line with expectations, sales dropped by about 3% year on year. Customers, tired of high prices, purchased fewer discretionary items and groceries. Chip.
All right. Thank you very much, Davis. Let's bring in Margie Eckelkamp, editor of The Scoop. Good morning, Margie.
Good morning, Chip. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, so it seems like employers need to basically have a lawyer on staff to keep track of all the labor rules and regulations. What is the latest from the Department of Labor on the overtime issues?
You know, Chip, we've been covering this issue in conjunction with our partners at the Ag Retailers Association, and I just had their policy team on our podcast. And actually, this Department of Labor regulation spiked up as the top read story on our site last week. And what it has to do with is a new overtime regulation. And as ARA puts it, this will impact all ARA members. The Department of Labor itself estimates that the rule will benefit nearly 4.3 million workers and goes into effect July 1. What they're doing is they are raising the threshold for overtime pay. So the final rule raising the salary threshold goes into effect in 2 steps over the next 8 months. Again, that first activation date is July 1, and then it will automatically update every 3 years based on census data. There are analysts out there saying that this is quite the dramatic shift, and the best advice is that employers should audit their current wage practices promptly to make sure that they are compliant with this new rule. So 2 things. Any exempt employee making less than $844 a week or $43,888 a year must be paid total compensation equal to the new salary threshold or reclassified as a new non-exempt employee. ARA has the DC Help Desk available for all ARA members so they can directly answer your questions about this new overtime rule.
Yeah, make sure that you are that you fully understand everything that is required as an employer. Margie, good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip.
Paul Neiffer, Farm CPA, is next. Joining me now is Amanda Welsh, Marketing Director for the Cattle Business Unit.
Pipe down over there. Not yet. Put him back in the box.
That's not true. That's not true. Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad that you are with us on this Wednesday morning. Paul Neiffer, Farm CPA, creator of the Farm CPA Report, and a very good friend of AgriTalk, and just a smart all-around guy when it comes to farm policy and what's going on out there. He joins us right now. Mr. Neiffer, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually at the Denver airport ready to head back to Phoenix. So hopefully I don't have too much noise in the background.
All right. Well, we'll manage around it. There's no question about that. So, okay, the House Ag Committee is going to mark up the Farm Bill on Thursday, and they're going to try to move that Farm Bill out of committee. What's in the bill that's caught your attention the most, Paul?
Well, we probably don't have enough time to cover everything I like in the Farm Bill markup or the soon-to-be markup, but certainly the increase in reference prices. Now, for certain crops, it's really a big increase, such as rice, cotton, soybean, or not soybeans, but peanuts. Wheat actually gets a pretty good bump. Under the current 2018 Farm Bill, the reference price can actually go up by 15%. Now, the interesting thing is they raised the corn reference price by about 10%,
right.
But for 2025 and 2026, that's effectively about a 1% increase because of the fact that the effective reference price was already up about 15% anyway. So that's a pretty good deal. The base acre update, that's pretty neat. For a lot of our farmers out there, they actually farm some non-covered crops such as, let's say sweet corn, green peas, potatoes. They actually get to add in up to 15% of those acres as an additional increase in the base acres. Plus, if they plant more than their average base acres from 2019 to 2023, they'll be able to increase those base acres. So that's a pretty good deal. I can go through a few more, but I'll just hold off if you have any questions on that.
Now, on the base acres, if someone's been planting more than their base acres, there's an opportunity to bring those acres into program participation. Is that correct?
That's correct. So let's just do a quick example. Let's say you've been planting 1,000 acres of corn. Let's just pick on corn. And your base acres are 700 acres of corn. You would then be allowed to increase your corn base acres from 700 up to 1,000. Now let's pick on maybe some of the southern crops. Let's take a peanut farmer that again has been planting 1,000 acres of corn. He or she has 700 base acres of peanuts. This does not allow them to increase the peanut base acres. They would then get an increase of 300 corn base acres because they actually planted corn during that period. So you just have to be careful. And then for those, let's say that they were planting 500 acres of corn and 500 acres of green peas or sweet corn, which is not a covered crop. They would be allowed to increase their base acres by up to 15% of total farm, so up to 150 acres of additional base acres, even though they didn't plant it to a covered crop. So a pretty good deal.
Well, and it sounds like this change in the base acres is an option, not a requirement to stay enrolled in the farm program. Is that correct?
Correct. But, I mean, is there any downside to doing it?
Well,
probably not, unless they think later on there's going to be another optional one and they want their crop mix to be a little bit different.
Right. Or the other thing that I was thinking is if they do have those 700 acres of peanut base, do they want to hold on to the peanut base acres? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Well, they're not going to lose. Remember, Chip, they don't lose any acres. They don't lose the 700 base acres. This is just an option to add acres. It doesn't change your current mix at all. So they're not going to lose any acres that they have right now.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
And then there's another pretty good provision that the payment limit, currently $125,000, will actually increase up to $155,000 if you can prove that your farm AGI, your adjusted gross income, is more than 75% of total AGI. And the nice thing, specifically in the bill, they have a provision telling FSA that the gains from farm sale or the sale of farm equipment is farm income. Believe it or not, almost all farmers do not qualify under their current definition because they have too much gain on sale for farm or from farm equipment. So that's a very good provision.
Okay. All right. The there's also some provisions, as I understand, being considered that give attention to previously underserved farmers. Is that in there? Because it's kind of been I've heard the comment more than once that you're going to want to turn the farm over to your wife because women will be eligible for more payments.
Now, that would be the Senate bill. We're talking about the House bill. Right now, the House bill does not differentiate between underserved and other farmers. And we know who the other farmers are, the non-underserved. We know who those are. So that right now in the House bill is good. Over in the Senate bill, on the base acres, they're only allowing underserved farmers to increase their base acres. So assuming that females are still underserved, and in almost all situations they are underserved, there's some, I think, conservation where they're not underserved, then maybe the best thing to do is make your wife at least 51% ownership. Because a lot of cases, if you have a partnership, if it's more than 50%, the whole partnership is underserved. So that could be the reality.
Wow. On the reference prices, there's some. Go through the differences between what is in the House bill and what we think is in the Senate bill.
Okay, so on the House bill, the minimum increase, I'm looking at the chart right now, is for barley at 10.1% increase. The rice gets the largest increase at 20.7% increase. All the other crops are in that, a couple of them are on the lower end, but most of them are in that 15 to 20% range. The only change in the Senate bill is that rice, cotton, and peanuts get an automatic 5% increase. They have not changed anything else on reference prices. So there's a huge difference between the House proposal and the Senate proposal on reference prices.
Yeah, there certainly is. It certainly is. And, the way things stand right now, you can't say that Democrats have waited, and the Senate Ag Committee has waited until right now to make some of those differences or some of their disagreement with the House version of the bill unknown. But when it comes to the House version of the bill, as I understand it, the Democrats in the Senate are looking at the nutrition title in particular and saying, we need to do something different.
Well, what the House is saying is that we're not going to allow the administration to just willy-nilly increase SNAP benefits like President Biden did during the pandemic. There was a major or large increase there. It added about $250 billion to the Farm Bill scoring over a 10-year period, is my understanding. The House is saying, hey, we're not cutting anything. We're just saying that we're not going to allow these major increases to happen without us being in control of it. Now, the Senate is saying, well, that's a cut. Well, no, it's not. And that's going to be the big battle is, the Democrats want to have unfettered access to increasing SNAP anytime they want to. And the House is saying, well, that's not what we want. So that'll be a big battle.
Well, there's a big difference between what you just described is in the House bill regarding that nutrition title and what is being described by Senate Democrats.
Oh, yeah. And you have Schumer coming out and talking about the fact that, the House bill was not bipartisan. Well, over on the Senate side, there's been no bipartisan either. The Senate bill is strictly a Democratic bill, that Senator Stabenow is issued. She really has, to some degree, she's retiring this year. So I think, she seems to be disinterested in really trying to meet and create a bipartisan bill is what it seems like right now.
Man, this is pretty amazing stuff. I'm glad I've got you and guys like Wiesmeyer to help.
Now, Chip, I was going to say there's another provision that's pretty good. If you have farmers that have some ground in CRP, the Conservation Reserve Program,
Yeah.
For many, many years, the payment limit on that has been $50,000 per acre. I mean,
dude, we're out of time.
Council. Time for Markets Now with the experts from Pro Farmer.
Joining us now, Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady. Wheat seems to be the reluctant participant in a rally.
Yeah, Chip, and it is at mid-morning, but it wasn't earlier. Overnight, we pushed out to the highest levels in July SRW futures, so the front month contract since August, early August of last year, but we've backed well off those highs and back below the psychological $7 mark, so we just didn't find sustained buying above that level once we got to daytime trade. Nothing major at this point in terms of price pressure, but 1 to 3 cents lower or so here at mid-morning. Kind of a mixed tone in the HRW and spring wheat markets, and so we'll have to see how it finishes up today, but bulls were strong early, and now bears have gained a little bit of an upper hand.
Okay. In the soy complex, bit of a mixed bag, mixed trade in meal, strength in oil and beans.
Yeah, so the oil market is helping out soybeans here, and soybeans are trading 5 to 6 cents higher, and so pretty solid gains there. Corn, it's also trading to the upside 1 to 3 cents, but assuming that some of that weakness in the meal market is helping hold back the corn, as well as wheat coming well off its session highs that I talked about.
Okay. Live cattle, feeder cattle, looking like they're working on the 7th day of a rally.
Yeah, so the buyer interest had been somewhat limited until this week, and kind of exploded yesterday, and off and running again this morning. Moderate gains in the live cattle, strong gains in feeder cattle, and the hog market. Boy, it just continues to fall. Sharp losses, especially in the front end of that market this morning.
Gotcha. Thank you, Brian. Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady on Markets Now.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. AgriTalk is brought to you by Rabo AgriFinance. Discover how local relationship managers and global sector expertise can help you address challenges and seize opportunities. Rabo AgriFinance. Learn more at raboag.com.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad you're with us. Okay. So I texted with Paul during the break. While I was in a conversation with Brian, I was also in a conversation with Paul Neiffer there, Davis.
A lot of irons in the fire today.
Yeah, to get the final comment on what he was saying. So, bottom line is, CRP payment limit is now $125. Would be in the House bill. Is now $125,000, up from $50,000. Paul says that would probably bring more acres into the conservation programs. So there you go, 125 versus 50,000 on the CRP payment limitations. Well, certainly a lot to get us started with there in the Farmer Forum. Let's get that started with Tim Recker from Northeast Iowa. Good morning, Tim. How you doing, buddy?
Good morning, Chip. We had an exciting last couple of days. 3 inches of rain on the Recker farm, and some exciting, not maybe as exciting of weather as you had, but sure was keeping us tied to the TV and radio to see where those storms were going to pop up, and tornadoes and that kind of,
Oh, yeah.
You want to be aware. You want to be aware and be ready to leave the grill and get to the basement.
That's right. That's right. And, the thing is, the weather forecasters had this thing pegged days in advance. And not only that it was going to happen on Tuesday, but that it would be a late afternoon system that we were going to have to pay closest attention to. It's pretty just kind of remarkable how they can do that. But boy, it was definitely a big deal. So before we bring Gene in, let's get to this. We've highlighted some of the water management efforts that you put in place on your farm, including it's like a 20-acre wetland, to slow down and to capture some of the runoff and filter out all the bad stuff before it starts going further downstream. How did it hold up on these heavy rains?
Well, you know what's really great, and I've been doing that since this wetland's been built, and we haven't had that many large rains. You know, these kind of rain events. We had one the day it was finished and built. We had a 7-incher, and the thing held perfectly and worked beautifully. But now that we got establishment of all the buffer, it's been going since 2020, 21. I drive down there right after the last big rain, and I just want to see what's going on. And so there's 2 watersheds that come together. One comes in a road ditch, and the other one the wetland takes care of.
Yep.
So you can see 2 bodies of water that are coming together, merging to leave my farm or go under the road to the neighbor. And the cool thing about it was what was coming over the weir of the wetland was pretty clear water. You know, we hadn't had a rain like that for some time, so there was some sediment in it. The water coming from the other watershed that comes down the ditch, comes right beside the wetland, was more like chocolate milk.
Yeah.
And so right there was a visual. I actually took pictures, took a video to document that. So the point is, these conservation practices work. When you have permanent conservation practices, they work every day, year in and year out. I had cover crops on the field above this wetland. The neighbor has cover crops, so there's some good protection going on before that water even gets there. So I was really pleased to see that. The other thing, I always like to drive around about an hour or 2 afterwards and see where water was standing and see where, if water was absorbing in or was it running off. And what's cool about all the cover crop, no-till corn that was planted, there was no erosion and water infiltration. There was no water standing after about 2 hours after the rain.
Pretty amazing. And I did a little bit of driving around myself yesterday afternoon and evening. And you can't say that about all the fields that are out there. There are some washes. There's fields that just simply cannot handle the kind of rains that we had in a relatively short period of time. And management's got something to do with that. Soil type has got something to do with it too. I get that. But management has something to do with that. All right, let's bring Gene into the conversation. Gene Millard from Missouri. How you doing, Gene? It's good to talk to you again.
Good morning, Chip. Thanks for having me in this morning.
Glad you are here.
We're getting along pretty good, but we're a little wet here too.
All right. You had the storms roll through yesterday too. Well, you've probably been seeing storms more consistently than we have.
It's been just about every third day that we'll have something roll through. Now, yesterday, we kind of watched the line form out here in Kansas, as they always do. But this one yesterday roared through at warp speed. I mean, it went through here so fast. We had a lot of high wind, 40-mile-an-hour wind most all day long. And it only dropped about a quarter of an inch of rain and just kept marching east and northeast toward Iowa and Illinois. And so we kind of dodged a bullet yesterday. Thank goodness.
Yeah. All right. What's the planting progress in your area, Gene?
Stalled. Really had terrific start to planting season back about the 10th of April, and everything was rolling good. A lot of guys were doing the early bean planting routine, getting the beans planted maybe before the corn, and hopefully that'll work out well for them. We started corn first and got it wrapped up, and just started soybeans, and just had about a day in the field, and all of a sudden it rained. And then it's been a day of rain, 2 days of not raining, another day of rain. And, once you get just an inch or two at a time, it soaked in. We were needing that. We built some reserve that we were completely bone dry in the subsoil. But we're pretty well soaked up now, so a quarter of an inch just keeps you out of the field again. And so the sprayers haven't been able to run. So it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I hear you. Talk about being dry, Tim. Northeast Iowa had, after 2 years of below normal rains, had exhausted all of our subsoil moisture. And I don't know if we've got a full profile yet, but it's a whole lot better than it was, isn't it?
It sure is a lot better. We've been in the D3 drought for quite some time, longer than I can remember. The good thing is, our crop yields have been pretty consistent and pretty good, even with those droughts. I've always said, we have more problem in a wet year than a dry year. And This year is the year that you can see where conservation pays and tile pays. But the problem is my dad was in the tiling business, we never had anybody put tile in a drought. It was the perfect time to do it. It was dry. There was never enough tile put in the drought. But as soon as it rains a lot, the tile plows go and we start putting tile in the ground. And that's, if we're not pattern tiled in this area, we have big problems just because of our heavy black dirt and subsoil that holds water. But we're in this, as far as planting progress, corn's all in, soybeans, we've got a couple 100 acres of soybeans left to do. One of the major concerns is seed corn. I'm a seed corn producer, so not getting seed corn in a timely fashion. It's getting late enough. There's still time for it, but it has some concern out here that we still got quite a few acres of seed corn to put in.
Okay. All right. Interesting that you still got that going on. And but progress has been made in your area, in Northeast Iowa and in Northwest Missouri. What's your attitude, Gene? You feel pretty good about this year's crops, or Tim just said we've got more problem with too much water than not enough usually.
Yeah, exactly. And compared with last year, I'm a little bit more uneasy because we had an absolutely terrific year last year. Even though it was dry, we had timely rains, and so we ended up with a terrific yield result. This time, we've had so much water, some of it standing for a while. Some of the guys out here in the creek bottoms, water's been over that crop, 2 or 3 days, and then it goes off. And so whether it's going to survive and make a respectable yield, that's to be determined yet. But it's just not as even and uniform and picture perfect stand that you'd like to see. But it's not going to be a disaster yet. But we need some breaks to get the crop in.
Gene, how far along is that earliest planted corn?
It's not shoot top high yet.
Okay.
Most. It's pretty short yet.
Yeah.
Because it started out, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then we finally got some warm weather that made it take off. So it's growing, and you can see the high spots do a lot better than the low spots.
Yeah, that sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it, Tim? That's about what we're at.
That's exactly where we're at.
Yeah.
We didn't get any of that early corn planted, and so we don't have any row corn to look at yet. And so we're waiting for that first emergence.
Okay.
But everything that's planted early looks really good.
Gotcha. All right. We are in the middle of this week's Farmer Forum. We've got Tim Recker from Iowa, Gene Millard from Missouri. When we come back, Gene, I want to get your take on what's going on this farm bill. Just your overall thoughts. We'll do that next.
AgriTalk is brought to you by Empower Dairy from Merck Animal Health, making the way you want to work better than ever before. See how at m-power-dairy.com.
We've got the Farmer Forum going here on AgriTalk. Tim Recker from Northeast Iowa, Gene Millard from Northwest Missouri. Gene, we've been talking about the Farm Bill for months.
Forever.
Yeah, forever. Here we are, all of a sudden, now some Democrat criticism is coming in on this on the House GOP bill. What do you make of all of this?
Well, if you want to be my honest opinion, I think that the administration wants to give away as much money as they possibly can before the election. And whether it's relieving a student debt loan debt, or whether it's increasing SNAP benefits, or whatever the case is, they want to have that flexibility, freedom to spend without congressional approval. And I think that's where the House is saying, wait a minute. And so that's going to be a battle that's going to go on. I think it's interesting that Secretary Vilsack has all of a sudden come out in support of the Senate version of getting this thing moving along in that direction. So it's very difficult to do a farm bill in an election year, and it's too bad that it happened this way.
Gene, I'm glad that you're surprised by Vilsack's attention to the situation now, because I am too. It's
not normally the case. The administration doesn't do that.
Exactly. And here we are now, Secretary Vilsack, and it's like I said earlier in the show, I doubt if anybody understands the Farm Bill process better than Tom Vilsack. The dude understands it. I get that. But to insert himself into the conversation the way that he has done so this morning, it just seems weird to me.
Well, it seems like it's a little late in the game.
Yeah.
To me, it should have been early on in giving the direction. But
at
this point in time,
he would defend that by saying this, and he talked about this last November at our meeting down in Kansas City at the NAFB meeting. That he basically said, listen, if you want more money for Title I for the safety net and commodity title, just get it out of the CCC. That's where you need to get it from. Come talk to me and we'll work on that. But that's not what the CCC is designed for, is it?
Exactly. Not my understanding. That's not what it's designed for. But it looks like there's always a pool of money laying somewhere that somebody can just instantly make an administrative decision to spend.
Yeah.
And that's just not the way the CCE was set up to operate.
That's right. Tim, your thoughts. What do you make of this whole process?
It's unfortunate that something as important as the Farm Bill has to land in a political year when there's already such divisiveness within. There's enough other outside noise going on, and then you throw a Farm Bill in the middle of it. And let's remember that still over 80% of that is our nutrition program,
right,
which is a good thing to have in the Farm Bill. But then we're talking about really fighting over really small percentages of the crop insurance, the commodity title conservation. You're talking small amounts. And I'm not sure, Chip, if everybody's paying attention to really that important right now. In my mind, I would hope that they delay it, extend it, and then we can start out in a new Congress. There's good ideas that's being floated around with the increases, in the payment limits and some of the increases in dollars. That it's all good, but this is a divisive time. Everybody is politically strategizing against the other side. There's not going to be give and take. I don't see this thing going in a good ending. And then when you look at all the steps that needs to be taken yet before, we're just at the beginning of their process in DC. There's a lot of steps left to do, Senate side, and I'm not going to be losing sleep over not having a farm bill.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would agree. I think an extension is a better option at this point, and let some dust settle and get some sanity in the process. There's a lot of other issues that are more concerning to me right now, and that's the issues with the EPA and their restrictiveness in terms of meeting the GREET standard for carbon scores and aviation fuel, And we've got to develop a market, and the export thing seems to be pretty soft right now. I don't hear any exciting news about export business and how we're going to sell this 15 billion bushel corn crop.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with Gene more. That's, farmers want to get their money from the market and not from the government. And what Gene just said, that's where our next market's going to be, is through low carbon production corn that we can go into either aviation fluid fuel or low carbon ethanol and biodiesel.
Yeah. Yep. No, I can't argue against those points at all, you guys. It's a situation that, and I got to throw this in on top of it. If we get another extension and this thing gets pushed into the next Congress, what's the first thing the next Congress is going to have to deal with? Is the debt limit and spending issues.
Exactly.
So what happens to the Farm Bill at that point, Gene? It gets pushed further down the priority list.
That's right. Well, the only thing that is a positive for keeping some kind of a Farm Bill conversation going is the SNAP program.
Yeah.
Because that is 80% of the Farm Bill.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Man, it's fun to talk to you guys and to get you on here at the same time. It's a good combination of for the conversation, that's for sure. Tim, thanks, buddy. Let's get together soon.
You bet. Thanks, Chip. We'll see you on the river.
All right, sounds good. Gene, thank you so much, my friend. All right. That's Tim Recker.
Good luck.
Tim Recker in Iowa, Gene Millard in Northwest Missouri on this week's Farmer Forum. Big thanks to those guys for bringing their thoughts. Come back this afternoon. We've got Randy Martinson, Martinson Ag Consulting.